Okay, a very quick sharing on the review of fermentation. I've been reading journals on fermentation, and then fermentation application in food technology is my sharing for on today. Okay, all right. My name is Suguna, and I'm from SHTCA school. Okay, all right. So as a introduction, let us look at the history. Basically, when we say fermentation, probably come across your mind that it is not something new. Like 100 years ago itself, the nomads, they already noticed something happened to the milk that they have actually stored. It actually changed to solid, or in some cases become semi-solid. So, and then only they name it cheese and yogurt, that they do not know that this accident is caused by fermentation. And many centuries, for centuries, people have been making alcoholic beverage. So how they make it is by using yeast, and then they ferment the fruit juice. But even this application that they found out in around 1850s, the French wine industry started to face a serious trouble, whereby there is a bulk spoilage of wine that they produce. Then comes in the scientist that you can see at the top right, okay, Louis Pasteur, we call him Pasteur, that he knows that this fermentation process is actually done by the yeast, and in order to stop, okay, in order to further spoiling the food, or we could say the reason of spoiling, okay, by probably not by the yeast, okay, we cannot blame on the yeast, but it had been suggested. So he said he has suggested to heat treated for a short while, and then it goes on like the story about how actually, sorry, how actually from there begin, and how other scientists actually explore into this fermentation uh, application. So a basic understanding of fermentation process, which I simplified. So the general equation, any sugar in a form of a simple sugar, glucose, fructose, or sucrose, then they change it into alcohol, okay, through the fermentation process. The outcome is alcohol, carbon dioxide, and also ATP, the energy. So fermentation process is something contrast if we compare to other preservation method, because in fermentation it encourages growth and also selected microorganisms to multiply. So usually we preserve food, we don't want these microorganisms to spoil the food. That is the purpose of preservation. But in this fermentation process, it is literally different. And also, they found out that fermentation is a natural method whereby we let this process happen by controlling the environment. And also, we choose selected natural organism or culture, which then added in the food. So what we want to avoid is we don't want a microorganism to be in the food, but in fermentation case, we will select organism and culture, which is only selected one, and then we put in the food, and then the growth take place. So for that, this natural organism or culture, they demand for high quality substrate or raw material that we wanted to use in the food. And the outcome, okay, during during their growth, which favorable outcome, they produces acids, or other way we call it alcohol. And then when they produce this acid or alcohol, this is where the harmful microorganism growth in that particular food is being prevented. So fermentation is basically full done by a good bacteria. Okay, so then we need to know how fermentation preserve food, right, as a scientist. So they come out, after a long study, they come out with these three basic principles that even until today we are following this principle. The principle behind fermentation, number one, principle number one is minimize during this fermentation process it will minimize the level of microbial contamination. So just understanding to all of you that microorganisms, they are good bacteria and also bad bacteria. So usually through in this fermentation process, it actually minimizes the level of microorganism, and then especially those from high risk sources, for example like E. coli, okay, if it is present in the, or Clostridium uh, uh, Clostridium botulinum, or we can say Bacillus cereus, because always is related to cereal kind of product. And number two, inhibited the growth of contaminating microflora. So it can stop the growth of other microflora. And finally, it also helps in killing the microorganisms and cause food spoilage. So these are the three basic principles that we hold in food industry. And from there, we know it provides a benefit. So definitely the first one is to preserve the food, and with realizing or without realizing is actually provide a variety in our diet. For an example, milk is not only consumed as in milk, in a glass of milk. We can, through fermentation process, once it's changed into a yogurt, we can consume the yogurt, or we can even add into other food, probably like salads. So you add, and then it can give variety in our diet. Okay, and also it is important, produce important compound like organic acid and alcohol, and more nutritious, okay, more the fermented product are more nutritious compared to unfermented counterpart. So there are three reasons out of it, because surprisingly, while growing in the medium, means in when those organisms grow in the food, they synthesize several complex vitamin. Basically, this can never happen, but in fermentation process, it happened to be that this microorganism can synthesize riboflavin and vitamin B12. And next, nutrients that locked up in a plant structure and cell, this is liberated through the fermentation process. They break down. So more nutrients are actually found in the food which is fermented. And also we can see like enzymatic splitting of plant materials. And this plant material, like for example, cellulose and hemicellulose, which cannot be digested by our human digestive system, is now easily digested, and it also gives benefit to all. So with all that, right, okay, with all this understanding, a basic introduction, now I will introduce to you there's variety of product which is actually been done, or I can say been produced through fermentation process. So I'm bringing from grain to glass with fermentation technology, or by introducing beer production. So I'm only going to choose one to share how does this fermentation technology being applied in the beer making. Okay. So basic information why I choose beer is the world's most widely consumed alcoholic beverage and third most popular drink overall after water and tea. So you see how famous is beer, and the best thing here is some to be oldest. This is thought to be oldest fermented beverage, probably even before you and me or we were born, it is already there. And usually they have about 4% to 6% of alcohol in it. And they have champions, okay, world top 10 beer consuming countries, from rank number 1 to rank number 10. This was in year 2012. That the most latest I can find, and then I just add on first lah over here. So beer is actually something very popular, and then it is being produced. So when we are talking about beer, some of us are consuming without knowing what is beer all about and how it is processed, and fermentation process is related in. So beer is actually a fermented beverage, full made from malted barley. So just pay attention to the word of malted, okay, malted barley and flavored with hops. Okay, we will know later what are these hops for. Okay, so when we, as I mentioned, pay attention to the terms of malted. So malting is a process of what we do is we take the any grains that you want to or the seeds, we will germinate the seed, okay, and then once the seeds are germinated, now it can actually go into a brewing process to make a sweet sugary liquid called wort. Okay, so this is beer that we are actually consuming on today. And basically beer are flavored with hops. Just now the terms of hop, right, in the introduction. So this hop is the one that add the bitterness and act as a natural preservative of the beer. So it's like 100% natural, and it is quite healthy as well. So in some cases, they also flavor with herbs and fruits. And the preparation of beer is called brewing process. And only 4 ingredients are basically needed in beer making. Water, we take starch sauces. We can choose any malted grain. Okay, malted as we understand earlier. So I already mentioned here what is malting. We are going to generate a seed, germinating the seed. So malted grain, and then hops and also yeast that we are going to add in. So we start with the water. Water, they comprise about 90% of the beer. And the mineral content of the water basically influence the flavor of the final beer. Okay, and almost today, those days they select the type of water to add into the beer. But now a day, almost any water that we can actually chemically adjust and then extract the beer desired. And from there we will get the type of the beer that we want according to the quality. Then it goes to the malted grain. Okay, so starch sauce in the beer provides the fermentable material, and it will determine the strength and the flavor of the beer. So it's important to choose the right malted grain. And most common sauce or some sauce used in a beer is a malted grain that I have just mentioned. So here malted, like we already understand, just again you see grain is malted. How they do the malting process, they soak in a water, and then they will allow it to germinate first, begin germination. And it's not fully, it's not fully germinate, but partially germinated, and then they will dry it, then drying the partially germinated grain. And all this will be done in a clean. Okay. And malting grain produces enzyme. So this is the enzyme that will convert the starches that I mentioned to you. Remember the starches, glucose, sucrose, and also fructose, right? In the grain into fermentable sugar. Okay, so example of starch sauce malted grains are barley. We can use wheat. It can be rice as well. Okay, and different malted grain will actually produce different flavor of beer. So the hops, okay, hops. Scientific name of hops is Humulus lupulus, and it's actually a flowering wine. Okay, it's not wine, it's wine, vine, and where the flower is used to preserve as a preservative, and the essential oil that added the flavor, the bitter taste of the hops is the one that actually needed and sorry that needed in our beer, and it balances the sweetness of the malt. And usually the bitter flavor of the hop is extracted during boiling. So we boil the flour and then we will add the aroma, okay, the essential oil into the beer. So actually, apart from giving the flavor, it also gives the smell to the beer, right? So hops, if you wanted to see a clear picture of an hops. Okay, next, the final one is yeast. So they are the most responsible ingredients in the fermentation of beer, and because yeast they will metabolize the sugar and then produce alcohol and carbon dioxide, and then they turns the wort into a beer. So two type of common yeast that we will use is top fermenting yeast and bottom fermenting yeast. Okay, and from there it will produce two category of beer, lager beer and ales category. So these are the examples of the beer. And the whole process of making beer, if you look at it, you will see the brewing process is already part of the fermentation process. So they have like a 10 steps here. So the malting comes first, that converting the barley or the other cereals into malt. So later we will use this in brewing, distilling, or in food, and takes time in the malting or something called malt house. So they will place it in the malt house and malting floor. And the malting process starts with drying the grain first. You take the grain and then you dry it first until the moisture content comes down to 14 percentage. And then they will start to store for 6 weeks to overcome some dormancy. Okay. And from there, when it is ready, okay, and then only then they will take and immerse in a water 2 to 3 times over 2 to 3 days, and then they will, this process is important to let the grain to absorb the moisture, okay, and they will start to sprout. So how do we control here is we will make sure the moisture content of the grain reach about 46 percentage. If it is reach around that number, then they will transfer the malting into a germination floor. Okay, and then they will start to, like the picture number 2 here, they will start to constantly turn around. So this will continue for 5 days while it is air dry. Okay, and this point of grain is called green malt. So this green malt then clean dry to the desired color and specification. So from here we can actually categorize the grain. This is where you got different color of beer and different taste of the beer. So basically what we get is a very pale to crystal and amber to chocolate or black malt. So in clean dryer, okay, it's a dryer, the all those sprouted barley in a clean dryer, it will be dried by spreading it on the wooden floor, and then we will smoke. So while you are smoking from the water coming from the roasting fireplace, and it will used to heat the wooden floor, okay, and the sprouted grains, it will get dry, and the temperature will reach about, the temperature used in this clean dry is about 55 to 85 degrees Celsius. So end product is the one you see on the left is the pale malt. The one that you see on your right is the crystal. So if you can see the number here, that means that is the quality that they pick. Okay, so from there it will go into a milling. This milling process is important. Milling means cracking the grain. So from this full grain, basically it will be cracked. And then doing this, before it go, the brewer, right? The brewer will choose for particular batch of beer. So they will choose. And milling the grain will allow, sorry, my connection is poor here, so I get disconnecting. So milling grain allows to the for the further absorption of the water, and later it will eventually be mixed with in order to for the water to extract sugar from the malt. Okay, so it comes to the mashing process. This is the process where of turning the finely grounded malt, the grist, into a sweetened liquid. So mashing converted the starch, they will release during the malting stage, and sugar can be fermented now. So sugar is formed, and the mild grain is dropped into warm water. Gradually they will go through a heating process. Okay, and cooking vessel, this cooking vessel, the whole cooking vessel of this process is called mash tun. In mash tun, grain and heated water, we will mix them and creating a cereal mash. So means it's like a cereal mash in that mashed tun, and transferring into sugar. So they will slowly do the process of transferring, especially change it into a maltose. Okay, so because water is the most important part of this brewing process. So water itself is the key ingredients. So if from the mashing process, actually what you can see is now the grain is mixed up with the water. Okay, so it means we have to sieve out those that mashed grounded malt, and then we have to how to say, collect the liquid. Okay, so this is the mash tun. Okay, it's a big one. From there it goes through the process of lautering, where we do the separation of the wood from the grain. Okay, so it's also done in this big tank. Okay, and once we have collected the liquid, it goes into a boiling process. It's where chemical and technical reaction take place. So we need to sterilize the wort, and we so that we can remove unwanted bacteria. Realize or not, earlier when I started, I talked about Louis Pasteur, right? He in 1980s, he already mentioned when we are doing fermentation process, we have to do the heat treatment. This is where the heat treatment idea comes in. So we have to sterilize, and so that we can remove unwanted bacteria, and then only be releasing the hop flavor, bitterness, and aroma compound. So this happened through isomerization or stopping the enzymatic process, and many more ways that we can actually do. Okay, from there, what we are going to do is in this point of process, right? They are still the wort. The solid particles are still there. So separation of solid particle in the wort, and then you want clarifying the hopped wort settles in the vessel. So we need to mix them up. Okay, whirlpooling, and then it will go into a cooling process. So the water need to be transferred quickly from the brew kettle, or we call this as a kettle also can lah. Okay, and then through a device to filter out the hops. So after the filtering process, now it's going to filter out the hoop, and then heat exchange to be cool. So earlier was hot, now we are going to cool them down. Okay, and heat exchanger basically consists of tubing inside the tube of cold water. So means it will go through in a cold water, and important to quickly cool the wort to point where yeast is safely to be added. Otherwise, our yeast, they cannot withstand with high temperature. So we have to make sure the temperature is right for the yeast to add it in and start the fermentation process. Okay. So like what we call the tube just now, right? So these are the tubes that I'm talking about. So they will go through the cooling tube. This is the hot one, and then it will go through the cooling tube, and it will be collected at the end, right? Plate heat exchanger we call it. And now started the fermentation process. So before fermentation process, all these need to be done. After passing through the heat exchanger, the cool wort goes to the fermentation tank, and this is where it started. So the brewer now select the type of yeast and add it to the fermentation tank. And this is where the real magic of brewing happen. Okay, when yeast is a microorganism, eat the sugar in the wort and turns into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So this process will take about 10 days. Okay, and finally it will become beer. So usually, brewery has own strain of yeast, and these are largely determined by character of the beer. So that it means that the person who are making the beer, they will have their own culture of yeast, and then that is their secret of different beer that we are producing today. So this is a fermentation tank. So all those beers that to be made will be fermented in this tank for 10 days, and then it comes to the maturation. Okay, maturation. Now the beer is being brewed, but still can be improved through maturation. So matured, the words come from matured or racking. Okay, and in this phase, right, the brewer moves the racks to the beer into the new tank called conditioning tank. And it will, the brewer then waits for beer to complete its aging process. So only through aging process that can give the ripened taste. Okay, and finally yeast and other particle will settle, and secondary fermentation saturates, whereby the beer with carbon dioxide will be collected. So no wonder we have bubbles in our beer and all. So finishing is the last step in the brewing process. Here beer is filtered and carbonated. So when it is not enough carbonated, carbon dioxide is not enough, or it can be easily evaporate. So we will add on the own carbonation will do that process. Okay, and finally filtering gives the beer sparkling clarity. The beer is moved in the holding tank and stays until it's bottled. So can and put into the kegs. So this is the whole process of filling in, and then the packaging. So we can see different packaging being used for packing the beer, right? So typically it means we are either we will choose bottle, we will choose aluminum can, and kegs, but it may include putting the beer into a bulk tank for high volume customers, and then that's how it has been distributed. Okay, so This whole process is unique. I think my side, that's all on the fermentation, the technology I want to introduce. But what we can see here is the whole process of beer making is unique. And at the same time, this application can be done in recent researchers recommended to be used in other food items. For an example, if you have let's say fruits, right? Okay, pineapple and so on. We can actually do the fermentation of the pineapple or any other fruits, dragon fruit, anything that you can use, and then you actually try to grow certain particular good bacteria out of it, and then you will use that bacteria to produce new product. So this is something that coming up in a food technology industry, and the latest study was on mushroom. We use the one fermented, it not necessarily yeast, it can be other lactobacillus, the good bacteria, and then it been included into the other food, so yeah, that you can produce new product and varieties. Okay, right. I think that's it. A simple finding, okay, of review research that I have done. So thank you so much. Um, I think Dr. Sarah, you will continue, right, Dr. Sarah?
Yes, Miss Suguna.
Okay, Dr. Sarah, you take over.
Thank you. All right, a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the research seminar. So my session should begin at 3 to 3:30. All right. So my topic is related to the rise of virtual tourism, and I'm Chia from SHTCA Penang campus. All right, so it all started, all right, for this virtual tourism, it all started and get very heat, all right, since this COVID-19 pandemic. All right, so this event, all right, this pandemic has become the catalyst to push, not just tourism operators from overseas, but also Malaysia, all right, to start to think what can they do during the lockdown, during this pandemic, what can they do in order to somehow generate income for the company. All right, so what is actually virtual tourism? Before we begin, let's watch a short video, all right, and see whether is that your imagination when it comes to virtual tourism.
We'd like you to send us photographs of your journey.
Wow, that was too close.
All right. So a lot of time when we are talking about virtual tourism, um, our friends, all right, our friends would think about, all right, a very immersive type of involvement in this tourism activities, all right, because you couldn't be there, so you will you were thinking that it should be something that make you feel that you are there. All right. But then, all right, think about it. In order to be experiencing this submersive, all right, exploration for that destination, the company, the tourism operator themselves have to spend a lot of money, all right, in creating this experience, and also the user, the tourist, all right, the potential tourists themselves should also have their own VR headset, and it is not cheap. All right, so it makes a lot of people think that it's actually very difficult. All right, it's actually very difficult. All right, so what is actually a virtual travel? It's a real-time travel where it takes place on the internet with other people. All right, and this virtual tourism supposedly, all right, to allow participants to experience immersive tourism, all right, while you remain indoors. And when it comes to this virtual tourism, there are actually two concepts. All right, one concept is a broad one where you obtain information and knowledge about that tourist attraction using a non-immersive way, like us watching video, or like us, searching information over the internet. All right, and the other way for us to experience this virtual tourism, it's called a narrow concept where you really experience that super real scenes, all right, with the 3D environment through technologies such as virtual reality and augmented reality. All right. However, during this what you call it, COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of travel agent and also our tourist guide, all right, they tried their best to offer their services to Malaysians and also potential tourists from all over the world through this website, exploremalaysiavirtually.com. It gets quite a heat, all right, a heat way to travel Malaysia. All right, so from this, the services that they offer is all right, they can conduct this tour by our licensed guide through live on site, where the guide will explain to you, all right, and let you see in real time the actual tourist destination. All right, or this tourist guide will just give a live commentary from the comfort of his home, all right, using different medias, all right, to help you to know a particular destination better. And also there is another way where they have this online 360, where they are using this 360-degree image technology to help you to to explore that place. All right, so potential tourists can actually choose from which type of virtual travel do they like in exploring Malacca, for instance. All right, other than that, we also have local, where they also offer some virtual tours in Malaysia. All this become a common scenario where some tourism operators, such as a Zoo Negara or some national museum or any other tourist guide, they tried their best to bring virtual tourism come to life, come to actual. All right, when all of us are forced to stay at home. All right, they have tried their best. Everyone has tried their best. All right, and most of the time we just stop at these broad concepts where you just explore that tourist attraction using a non-immersive way. That's because our technological wise, and also what you call that, our manpower, we don't have that, and also the cost that involved. So we just stay at this broad concept when it comes to virtual tourism. All right, then now let's take a look at how DG, all right, how DG help us to make all right, to make virtual tourism possible. All right, just hold on.
With 5G, you can enjoy a real-time 4K view of Penang, Cyberjaya, and Langkawi from this distance. This incredible feat is an extension of DG's virtual tourism showcase in Langkawi, the first of its kind to make Malaysian 5G history. There's no lag, and it's in real time. That's because 5G's low latency connectivity allows gigabytes of information to be sent within milliseconds. Now, you can be a tourist from anywhere, anytime. With that said, virtual tourism is now more than just traveling to countries far away. It's the unraveling of breathtaking sceneries beyond the capabilities of conventional tourism in finer detail of 4K, 8K, or even 16K, like overlooking tea plantations in Cameron Highlands, being on the shores of Redang Island serenaded by the sound of the waves, or staying immersed in centuries of Malaccan history from the top of St. Paul's Hill, granting you once-in-a-lifetime experiences from home. The possibilities are endless, and it all begins here, powered by DG 5G.
All right, sorry for the glitch earlier where I forgot to include the computer sound. All right, so you see, all this virtual tourism couldn't be a success, all right, especially those immersive type of experience without the collaboration from telecommunications and also involvement from the IT industry. All right, we couldn't do it on our own. All right, as a tourism provider. All right, and this VR, the virtual reality, has been actually utilized in the main tourism related areas where it's helpful in development and management, marketing, conservation of heritage, accessibility, education, and entertainment. All right, let's take a look for development. How could we use a VR? All right, in helping development and management of destination. So you see, actually this is back in 2015, where Ford, all right, it's using this VR to design supercar. So at the same time, all right, how as a tourism operator, we can use this VR to actually help us to arrange, all right, like for instance, in a museum or in an exhibition, we are actually, we can use this VR to help us to arrange the layout, all right, and also to help us to manage the place, all right, and plan it in advance. So this is something that we could do to help us to reduce any other unforeseen issues when tourists is coming over. All right, and the next part is about marketing. All right, like I said earlier, for this broad concept of virtual tourism, where this VR comes very handy when it helps to provide information about a destination. All right, how? because the potential tourists get to explore, all right, a destination and plan their trip earlier, all right, before they truly decide where to visit. For instance, in Penang, all right, back in year, I think it's just introduced last year, 2021. All right, we have this My Home item where we have this 360 degree, all right, of Air Itam area where you can plan, okay, your trip and what to do there. All right, so now let's watch another video, all right, where we can see how Air Itam actually provide the tourism, virtual tourism. I just hold on. All right. This for this My Home IUTAM is actually an initiative by the State Assemblyman from IUTAM. All right. And recently they also started to introduce Falim in a different way. All right, to encourage, you know, it's like a tease. It's like a teaser to make tourists to get interested to a destination. All right, other than for marketing purpose, this VR will be very helpful in conservation of heritage. A lot of time, maybe we have some restriction to enter selected area, or it could be because of that particular area um, is under renovation or could be destroyed by natural occurrences or wars. All right, so this VR, all right, this VR technology will be helpful for the potential tourists or the tourists to view what it looks like. All right, what it looks like previously when it's still perfect. All right, and also this VR technology, and when it incorporate to tourism, it make it possible for a lot of OKU or senior citizens or someone who couldn't afford travel do actually have a chance to visit, all right, a destination. All right, we should understand that a lot of tourist attractions in Malaysia are not very OKU friendly. All right. So where if when virtual tourism is possible and make it affordable, all right, for the users, then it makes traveling possible for everyone. All right. And other than that, the next things about VR, it's for education where you can take a virtual tour to a destination, and it also helps to to increase the income of a tourism attraction. All right. Other than that, entertainment, of course. All right, where we could have this virtual theme park. All right. So when it's like impossible to build, um, the what you call it, the consumer these days are asking for more thrilling experience. All right, more crazy and how. All right. So when we couldn't do it, and VR is something that make this virtual theme park possible. All right. So now with more and more countries opening up their borders, we notice that people are still people still choose to travel to a destination physically. All right. Then what about virtual travel? Could it be a continue? All right, could it be a trend? Could it be continue to survive or maybe flourish? All right, or it would go down. All right, so you see, virtual tourism has faced several challenges such as like high price barrier that I shared earlier. The cost to create this immersive experience is very high, and also the user themselves must have that headsets in order to experience that. And also when it comes to innovation, that is something that we have to when it comes to innovation, we couldn't just do it ourselves. All right, when I say we, that means the tourism provider. Tourism provider can't just do everything on their own. All right, so we need assistance from different parties, different stakeholders in order to make it possible. All right, and also with the trend of touchless tourism, hands-free environment, virtual travel could be a trend as you see people are getting used to paying making transaction online, and touchless document scanning, the motion sensors, and virtual classrooms was quite impossible last time. It was deemed very difficult to conduct, but then right now it seems to be something very common and possible. All right, so virtual travel should continue to stay if we include some innovative elements in there. All right, so before we end this session, so I would like to share a video about Singapore. All right, so how can we make virtual tourism pay? All right.
Do you want to make $1,000 today? And then $1,000 a day?
Since late March, Singapore's borders have been shut to short-term visitors. In June 2019, there were 1.55 million tourist arrivals. In June 2020, slightly over 2,000. That's a 99.9% drop year on year.
As much as we try to drive local consumers to the market. But the reality is there are only 5.5 million people in Singapore. We had 19.1 million visitors last year. It's a very big gap. We are cognizant that it's not going to be able to cover the entirety of the revenue lost from international visitors. But what tourism businesses can do is then to think about new business models, new experiences and services. This is exactly the period that we need to innovate.
The STB has been working with technology company Adobe to help businesses and attractions with this digital transformation. This includes providing them assistance to create virtual experiences and activities, and to use data analytics to create more personalized and bespoke experiences.
We call it the One Singapore experience. So what this does is it combines user experience on one side, which is thinking about how to help a visitor discover new experiences that perhaps could be quite difficult to find if you're not familiar with Singapore. On the other side is actually collecting little chunks of data so that we can piece together and better customize the experience for that particular visitor.
The smart thing is to take this data when people are engaging with that content and use it to understand what works, what doesn't work, and how you can improve delivering that content to the same people in a different way, or learn from the groups that form around particular content and amplifying that so that you get a better return from it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today, and hello from the wild side.
One organisation that took this message to heart is Wildlife Reserves Singapore, which manages Jurong Bird Park, the Night Safari, River Safari and the Singapore Zoo. During the circuit breaker, they launched a customised virtual experience called Hello from the Wild Side. Some of the features include an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at an animal of your choice, where guests can ask questions directly to the animal's keeper.
So when people call in, and the carekeeper of those animals would then be answering some questions, interacting, do a bit of a presentation, telling people about, what the animals do, what they like, how they're taken care of, and then interacting with the visitors and allowing the animals to show some of their natural behaviors. Very much like the sort of things visitors would get when they come to our zoo.
Dr. Cheng says that the response from the public has been so positive that the zoo will continue with the program even though restrictions have been lifted in Phase 2. Another virtual activity that WRS implemented was inspired by home-based learning. Since schools had to cancel their zoo visits, the zoo brought the animals to the students online.
Imagine you are now primary school student, you are sitting in your hall and you're looking at this big screen, and our educators will be telling them that, come, we're visiting the zoo, and then we'll be showing them a video of one of our exhibits, for example, fragile forest. They'll be encountering different animals. We're pointing out to them what animals they are. And the whole thing is very interactive, that, after seeing certain animals, we'll get the students to do certain movements, imitate the movements of the animals that we sing along.
Dr. Cheng says WRS is now looking to run this school program in other countries like India or China, discovering a previously untapped market. Experts say one of the benefits of virtual tourism is to reach out to groups that would not otherwise have the opportunity to visit your country.
The first group we see is actually the baby boomer group, who may actually find it difficult to physically visit these attractions because of old age or physical disability, for instance. The other group that we see is actually students, by probably providing a personalized itinerary for schools at a fraction of the cost that the schools would actually have to spend to physically bring the entire group of students there.
Another company that innovated during the circuit breaker was Zouk. The nightclub is popular with locals and visitors alike. With night spots closed under circuit breaker measures, Zouk started live streaming their DJ sets, something it calls cloud clubbing.
We basically started live streaming people's in DJs' homes and stuff. And then we actually then continued that as well. And we actually made it more into kind of a 360 lifestyle portfolios. So we actually had some segments where we're doing interviews with some of our staff, interviews with DJs. We had like kind of fitness sessions, we had yoga sessions, we had cocktail making classes, and it was a really great way for us to really go and engage our consumers.
Stakeholders say it's too soon to tell if virtual visitors can make up the downturn in real revenue. But with borders still closed in Singapore and around the world, joining the digital club means not just new audiences, but also an expansion of brand offerings and identities.
All right. So you see, everyone is trying to tap into untapped market where we want to generate more income, all right, through any possible way. So this virtual tourism has provided an opportunity to, if you look at it from, limited access, where it's not just because of for some tourists that couldn't access to that as a destination personally, but also perhaps to explore some destination where we could not do it personally. All right, for some delicate artworks, for instance. All right, and then to enhance the visit, of course, a lot of time we need this virtual way to help us to enhance and also to help us to engage, all right, our tourists. All right, then also another way is virtual worlds. Perhaps we could create a non-existent location. All right, and this virtual tourism could be a way for us to go there. It's just like Avatar, that movie. All right, so that's it for the sharing from me today, and thank you very much. And now I would like to pass the mic to our postgraduate student, Kelly.
Sorry, can you hear me now? So, so Oh.
Hi, Kelly. Do you hear me, Kelly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Ah, okay, okay. Sorry. Sorry for the technical problem. And good afternoon to ladies and gentlemen. And I'm Kelly, a student and postgraduate students and from School of Hospitality and Tourism. And today I would like to share about the land reclamation and tourism development, uh, way of the benefit way and advantage way. Getting know what is land reclamation. And land reclamation is actually getting the land area for a particular use and generally a more productive land for an agriculture, industrial use, residential, and tourism. And the land reclamation is actually requires a large number of the construction workers. And based on the research, there are three types of the main. There are main three types of the land reclamations, which is land rising, urban redevelopment, and polder. And for the land rising, which is to reclaim the land by filling the land with the palm sand or vegetations planting in order to support the natural accretions of land. And it usually is implemented at the swampy land area, which is the wetland. And for the urban redevelopment, which is involved partially raising land and protect the building and infrastructures from the coastal flooding occurrence. And according to the studies, it is very hard to implement this kind of the land reclamations. And the third one will be the polder. The polder can be implemented in the low-lying coastal area or river side, which is at the lower area of the coastal area. It is suitable to reclaim the land by using polder. Oh, move on to the tourism development. The travel and the tourism industry have a very huge contributions to the economy of the country. And the economic evaluations is very, very important, especially in the management of the cultural, natural, and the environmental resources. And the economic valuations is to be able to manage the resources efficiency and on a target. And every resources that utilize must have an impact on both physical, economically, socially on the communities. And the tourism development contributes to the improvement of the people's quality of life, which is the residents' support for the tourism growth is decided by the satisfactions with the destination's quality of life as a result of tourism. Oh, the land reclamation on the tourism development, which is reclaim land to build an artificial island with the tourism-related amenities such as hotels, resort, water theme parks, and built together with the restaurant, residential area, and the retail outlet. And the most notable example for the tourism-related reclamation project in the world, which is Palm Island, in the United Arab Emirates, And the world best airport, Changi Airport, Singapore, Depansa Airport, Bali, Indonesia, and Jeju International Airport in South Korea. So in this sharing section, we are focusing on the Palm Islands from the United Arab Emirates and the world best airport, Changi Airport. So the positive impacts on the land reclamation of the tourism development in the Palm Jumeirah Islands in the United Arab Emirates is actually reclaim total 560 sectors of the land, and the total sand used to build this island is approximately 42 million tons and 7 million tons of rocks. And the Palm Jumeirah Islands is actually improve the local businesses and increase the job opportunity in the hospitality and tourism industry. And the Palm Jumeirah Islands is actually named as the world's leading tourism development project at the year 2021 World Travel Awards. And the making of this iconic tourist destination is actually attract many tourists to visit and increase the tourist arrivals towards the destination, and it directly boosts up the occupancy rate of the hotel in the Palm Jumeirah Island in UAE. So the next one will be in Singapore, Changi Airport, and it actually built. It is used over 40 million cubic meters of sand reclaimed from the seabed to build this airport. And besides that, it contributes to the growth of the Singapore's GDP, which is a gross domestic product or profit. And reclaimed land was the only way to build this airport is because of the Singapore land constraint, due to the constraint of the force by the land use of the topography. And in order to develop the tourism in Singapore, and so they built these Changi airports to improve their economies of the country. So the negative impact of the land reclamation, which is in coastal area, fisheries, and fishing communities. In coastal area, the impact of the coastal area will be the destroy of the natural landscape on the coast, and the land reclamation is actually damage the coastal ecosystem as well. And it also caused the harmfulness on the coastal ecotourist destinations such as the beach area. And the next impact for the fishery will be the coral reefs for the fish spawning and the nursery are damaged, and cause the fish mitigate to other sea, so that the area of the reclamation, the land reclamation area, the fishery product will be declining. So when the fish product declining, it will directly affect the national food security. So when the declining of fish affect the national food security, and the locals here will not getting much fish, as the fish is actually an essential source for the people. It's an essential source of protein and fatty acids for the people. So it will affect the national food security. So the declining of the fish also will cause the fish price increase. The next one will be the fishing communities. It will impact the fishing communities as well. It affects the fishermen income and the livelihoods, which they already lost their job, and reduce the employment opportunity for the fishing communities, as the fishermen no longer pick up the seashells and find some crab and other sea organization along the shoreline during the low tide after the implementation of the reclamation project, as the sand that used to serve as a sea floor was transformed into the mud due to the land reclamation project. So the shoreline is totally replaced by the land reclamation instead of the fishing community. So the fishing community is actually forced to leave the place for them to reclaim the land. So as you can see, the data, the graph shows above, which is the data from the Department of the Fishery Malaysia, the shrimp, the graupels, and the clupets landing in Penang, Malaysia. And from the 10 years time from the 2010 to 2020 is actually declined, especially for the shrimp. So the land reclamation may affect those fishery products to decline, especially for shrimp and graupels as well and clupets. So yeah, so this is the end of my sharing. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Kelly has already finished her presentation, and these are all the three sessions that we have for today. All right, and thank you for attending. I'll see you guys again. Bye bye.